In today's video, we're checking out the most impressive lens I've seen from the folks over at TT Artisan. This is the TT Artisan 100mm f2.8 macro lens for the L mount. This is a full frame macro lens with a 2:1 reproduction, so you can get insanely close to your subject. I've been shooting with this lens over the last few weeks, and while macro video and photography is quite challenging, it's rewarding when you capture something beautiful. Let's take a look. This sample footage was shot using the Lumix S5 Mark IIX in combination with my custom Natural Plus real-time LUT profile. Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. This is the TT Artisan 100mm f2.8 macro lens. Unlike a lot of other TT Artisan L mount lenses, this is a full frame lens with that 2:1 magnification. This allows you to get some insane close-up photography or video in the macro realm. Most of the macro lenses I've reviewed up until this point have had a 1:1 reproduction, so it was fun to test out this in both the studio and outside in the field. Is it somewhat challenging to use a 2:1 macro lens? Yes, but the results are so good, and we'll speak more about the challenges coming up shortly. Before we get into more samples, I just want to thank TT Artisan for sending this out for the review, which is why it says paid promotion somewhere on screen. Just to let you know, no money's changed hands and all thoughts are my own, but they are letting me hold onto this sample unit, and I'll give you my thoughts about this lens throughout the video, so stay tuned for that. You can check this out using the links below. At the time of filming, the suggested price for this is $339 US, and for that price, I think it's a really great value lens. While I've only tested the L mount version of this, you can find it for most of the popular lens mounts, and I'll leave a list on screen. Please drop a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the notification bell if you find this video helpful, and you'll be notified of future videos. Let me show you how close you can get to a subject. This flower is very small. It's about half the size of a golf ball, for example. Here's a closer shot, and now at the minimum focusing distance. How crazy is this? You can see the fibers on the flowers and details you'd be unable to see with your eyes. Shooting macro is like shooting in a different dimension, and I'll show you some better examples shortly. The way this lens is able to achieve that great minimum focus and 2:1 reproduction is by shifting the entire group of elements essentially forward in the barrel here. So as I pull focus to minimum focus here, you can see how it slides it forwards. I'll go backwards again so you can see it again, and moving it all the way back to minimum focus. This TT Artisan macro feels like a far more expensive lens than it is, and it's a much more robust lens in the hand than most of the current lenses I have from any brand. This lens body has a metal construction, and the focus ring is large and fluid to turn, and we get a clicked aperture ring over here that will go all the way from f2.8 wide open all the way down to f22. The aperture ring has that kind of solid feel, and you won't accidentally knock it out of place or move it by accident. There's a 67mm filter threading on the front if you plan on using NDs or polarizing filters. We also get mounting points included, and this is great if you want to mount an LED, for example, directly to the end if you're shooting something close up where you require a light. It also comes with like a cold shoe adapter that you can basically just screw right in on any of these points. This lens is quite large and heavy, coming in at 748 grams, but the results make it worth it. Handheld shooters, though, will definitely feel the weight of this for long duration shoots, but if you're using a tripod, it won't be an issue. Nearly all of the sample footage and photographs in this video were shot handheld using this lens on my S5 Mark IIX and the S9. Now, just to let you know, this is a 100% manual focus lens, so unlike the Lumix 100mm macro I reviewed a while back, you'll need to pull focus manually. I kind of prefer to focus manually when using a macro lens anyway, as f2.8 creates a beautiful fall off and insane levels of background blur. If you plan on using this lens at minimum focus, taking advantage of that 2:1 reproduction, focus it at minimum focus and then just sort of lean forwards or backwards, and you should be able to get your subject in focus. Now, this is still quite challenging, but once you get used to it, it actually works really well. If you plan on shooting product photography, get yourself a tripod. It will make the world of difference. In the studio, I've used this on a tripod and also handheld, and under regular studio lighting like this, I was able to get some really nice results. Now let's talk about the background blur, because the bokeh itself is quite nice whether you're shooting up close or using this lens for general purpose photography. The bokeh balls look pretty round, as you can see from this example on screens, and I have no complaints with the end result. In the studio, I found myself shooting between f5.6 and f10, and the colors, contrast, and sharpness are all excellent. Sharpness overall is not an issue on this lens, so there's no trade-offs outdoors, for example, under good lighting conditions, shooting at f11 or f16, for example, when you want more in focus. The minimum focus is listed at 25 centimeters, which doesn't sound that close, but in combination with the 100mm focal length and that 2:1 magnification, the results are very impressive. This is going to be my main studio lens anytime I'm shooting up close product shots when I need to display a logo, feature, or design element on a piece of gear. There's nothing to stop you from using this lens as a general purpose photography or portrait lens. It will really give you excellent results. That 100mm focal length with the 2.8 aperture allows you to create some crazy subject separation and background blur. This lens is sharp and optically solid. I didn't see much in the way of chromatic aberration in real world shooting scenarios, even when shooting at f2.8 outside. If I really did some pixel peeping on some of the logos or dials or buttons on the camera photos, for example, there might be a hair of chromatic aberration in those scenarios, but if I can't see it just looking at it normally, then it's not going to be enough to ruin your image. As I mentioned earlier, you can definitely use this lens as a general purpose photography or video lens without the macro aspect, and I'll show you some examples of that right now. There's only really a few things to consider with this 100mm f2.8 macro lens. The first is the size and weight. This lens is pretty huge, and here's a comparison up against the 20 to 60mm kit lens so you can get a sense of scale. Now, the 100mm macro lens I reviewed a while back is basically the same size as the kit lens, so this is quite a lot larger. Secondly, there's so much shallow depth of field that you might prefer to focus stack your images in post, and none of which I've done in this particular video review. I wanted to showcase how this TT Artisan lens performed without doing any post-production, and I was able to get some really excellent shots, at least for my standard anyway. If you've never shot any macro photos, it can be quite a challenge, and I had a bunch of B samples that were completely out of focus. While this is no fault of the lens itself, I just wanted to mention this if you're new to shooting macro, so expect a few photos to be completely out of focus. Overall, this lens has been a pleasure to use, and the 2:1 magnification is simply beautiful if you nail focus. This is the best TT Artisan lens I've used personally, and I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a thumbs up, click the bell, all that kind of stuff. It really helps, and I will catch you on the next video. If you want to check this out, I'll link it down in the description box. Thanks for watching.